friends, welcome back. English language, which came to India with the English people, flourished and gained popularity. Today, it has dominated every sphere including the educational system of our country. This module discusses the interesting story of the development of English in India over years till date. The functions of English as a link language, international language, library language, etc. are discussed briefly. Historical development of English in India. Few centuries ago, English was spoken by just 5 to 7 million people on one small island. Today, there are more non-native users of English, and it has become a world language, which is the linguistic key for opening the borders. Now, English is spoken by at least 750 million people. It is the official language in over 60 countries. English, the queen of the languages, has influenced Indian national life and has aroused patriotism and national sentiments across the country. Education in British India was completely ignored due to various reasons. Later on, this was vehemently and successfully opposed, and various systems were experimented. The one which was found to be less erroneous has been accepted at present. A brief sketch of the historical development of English over periods is given below. The East India Company, a trading body established in 16,000, showed no interest in the education of Indians. They feared that they might lose their colonies in India by importing their education here. No responsible posts were given to Indians according to the policy of Cornwallis. In 1813, the Parliament inserted a clause in the charter of the company to the effect that after defraying all civil and military expenses, a sum of not less than 1 lakh of rupees in each year shall be set apart and applied to the revival and improvement of the learned natives of India and for the introduction and promotion of the knowledge of science among the inhabitants of the British territories in India. Still, East India Company took no initiative or interest for the promotion of education in India. During this period, there was an increased interest among the people of India for English as a medium for higher education in preference to Arabic and Sanskrit. Social reformers like Raja Ram Mohan Roy and Radha Kant Dev and others were of the view that English education in India would lead to a new and regenerated Indian nation. The Hindu College was established for the education of children of the upper and middle classes of Indian society in European science and English literature. This set the way for an educational revolution which created far-reaching effects on the life of Indian people. The proposal of General Committee of Public Instruction in 1823 to open a Sanskrit college in Calcutta to encourage Oriental education was opposed by Raja Ram Mohan Roy in his letter to Lord Armstrong, the Government General of India. This letter started the well-known Anglicist Orientalist controversy. The great Indian education debate erupted in 1834 between Orientalists and Anglicists over what kind of education should the British promote in their growing Indian empire. The Anglicists proposed that the government's funds should be used exclusively for the propagation of English language education. The Orientalists insisted that money also be spent on reviving and supporting classical Indian learning in Sanskrit and Arabic. The issue was resolved when Governor General Bentinck, influenced in part by Macaulay's minutes on Indian education, where the languages and literature of India are summarily dismissed and worthless, scarcely worthy of the attention of even children, ruled in favor of Anglicists. Macaulay's Minutes. In 1834, Lord William Bentinck invited Lord Macaulay to preside over the General Committee of Public Instruction. In 1835, Macaulay presented the famous minute in which he strongly recommended for the promotion of English language as a medium of instruction in India. His intention was to form a class who may be interpreters between us and the millions whom we govern, a class of persons, Indian in blood and color, but English in taste, in opinions, in morals and intellect, and would enrich the vernaculars by the knowledge of Western sciences and literature would reach the masses. This was called the downward filtration theory. Lord Macaulay's minute settled the row in favor of Anglicists. Wood's Dispatch. In 1854, Charles Wood prepared a dispatch on an educational system for India. This dispatch is often described as the Magna Carta of English education in India, as it was the first comprehensive plan for the spread of education in India. It asked the government of India to assume responsibility for education of the masses, thus repudiating the downward filtration theory. Charles Wood also recommended English as a medium of instruction for higher studies and vernaculars at the school level. The ideals and methods of Wood's dispatch dominated for the last decades, which show rapid westernization of education system in India. Knowledge of English became a tool of socio-economic dominance. But post-independence period witnessed sharp reaction against English, and the controversy for and against in the retention of English in India erupted. The first Minister of Education, Abdul Kalam Azad, realized that a sudden removal of English from the picture would injure the education system of India. In our Constitution, it was laid down that English would continue as the official language of the Union for 15 years up to 1965, and after that Hindi would replace it. Great leaders were aware of the vital significance and relevance of English to India and to her future. The Bill 1963 declared English as the associate official language of the Union. Education Commissions. The policy of Government of India towards English education is clearly stated in the reports of various education commissions. The University Education Commission 1948 to 1949 under the chairmanship of Dr. S. Radhakrishnan pointed out that our students who are undergoing training at schools which will admit them either to a university or to a vocation must acquire sufficient mastery of English to give access to the treasures of knowledge. Report of the Secondary Education Commission 1952 to 1953 stated, the present position of India in the international sphere is partly due to the command that educated Indians have acquired over English. Commenting on the role of English language, Kothari Commission Report 1964 to 1966 stated, the introduction of regional language as a medium of education should not be interpreted to mean underrating the importance of English in the university. For a successful completion of the first degree course, a student should possess an adequate command over English, be able to express himself with reasonable ease and facility, understand lectures in it, and avail himself of its literature. Therefore, adequate emphasis will have to be laid on its study right from the school stage. English should be the most useful library language in higher education and our most significant window on the outside world. The three-language formula. The three-language formula was evolved as a consensus in 1961 at a meeting of chief ministers of different states. To irradiate the conflict which aroused among the people about the teaching of English, Kothari Commission 1964 to 1966 made certain modifications in it. They have also given the right direction of how to introduce English in our curriculum. The three-language formula suggested by the Commission envisages that only one language, which will be regional language, will be taught during lower primary classes, that is, class 1 to class 4. From class 5 to class 7, 2 languages will be taught. One of them will be regional language. The other can be either Hindi or English. A third language can be studied as an optional subject. From class 8 to class 10, 3 languages will be taught. In Hindi-speaking areas, the students will study Hindi, English and a modern Indian language. In non-Hindi speaking areas, students will study regional language, Hindi and English. After class 10, language study will be optional. According to this, English has to be learned by everyone during the school period. Today, in this fast-growing age of science and technology, the importance of English hardly needs to be mentioned. Functions of English. In a country like India, English serves utilitarian than cultural functions. English as a national link language. India is a multilingual country with 18 regional languages being recognized by the Constitution as per the 8th schedule. Other than this, there are about 380 other dialects being spoken across the country. There is no single Indian language which can claim to be a means of communication for the whole India. Hindi, which was adopted as the national official language, is the language of only 38% of the population. Next comes the languages like Bengali, Telugu, Marathi and Tamil. Hindi, the national official language, was not able to replace English by the presumed period of 15 years from the date of adoption of the Constitution. English was adopted as the link language, lingua franca, by an act of the Parliament in 1965. English is a unifying factor for discussion, conversation, etc. among different states having different regional languages. The correspondence between union government and the state government is mostly done in English. It is the language understood by educated people all over the country. A common language aids business and trade. During freedom struggle, English language brought together national leaders from various parts of our country. English as an international language. English occupies the unique position of being the language used by the largest number of people, about 350 million, which is next to Chinese language. The number of people speaking English as a second language is much more than those who speak it as first language. It brings greater number of people in closer contact with one another. It helps every nation to study the culture and civilization of other nations. English is a language of diplomacy and international communications, business, tourism, education, science, computer technology, media and internet. As English is used to develop communication, technology, programming, software, etc., it dominates the web. 70% of all information stored electronically is in English. Through English, we can establish social, political, cultural, intellectual and economic relations with rest of the world. If a person knows English, he is sure to be understood anywhere in the world. F.G. French, in his book Teaching of English as an International Language, says, English has become a world language. It is a means of international communication. There is no other. English as a library language. Professor Gokak has rightly observed that it was in English classrooms that the Indian library renaissance was born. By library language, we mean that the carrier must study that much English which would help him to understand the subject matter contained in library books. Though Kothari Commission recommended the use of mother tongue as the medium of instruction up to the highest level of education, it also said that no student should be awarded a university degree unless he has acquired some proficiency in English. Books on all branches of knowledge are available in English. More than 60% of the world's journals, newspapers and periodicals in the field of science, medicine and engineering are published in English. It is not easy to translate all these into the regional languages. English can rightly be regarded as the key to the storehouse of knowledge. Only the study of English books reveal the degree of advancement taken place so far in the world. The students educated through distance mode are also benefited much. The Kothari Commission called English the library language. English as a window on the world. A traveler who can speak English will find somebody who can understand him wherever he may go. Anyone who can read English can keep in touch with the whole world without leaving his own house, observes F.G. French. The transparency of the English language enables one to observe the outside world. As Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru said, all regional languages must be developed and promoted without discarding English language. English is our major window on the world. To do so will amount to closing a window to the outside world of information and technology. The chief agent of globalization during the past 2 centuries was English language. It has spread over the length and breadth of the globe that the sun never sets over its linguistic empire. English as the language for science and technology. The scientific and technological information is available mostly in English. We need English to be abreast with the fast-growing world. Even in translations from English to a regional language, the technical words and registers of the concerned subjects will be in borrowed terms, as they have no corresponding equivalence in the target language. F.G. French says, every advance in science, engineering, in trade, in politics, in every branch of human thought is discussed, printed and determined and made available in English. It is hardly possible to discard English for the following reasons. In many fields, authentic books are available only in English. Communications to any part of the world is possible within seconds through network in English. International seminars are held in English. For transacting scientific and technological help and knowledge between nations, English is a medium. For acquiring deep knowledge in IT, for the effective use of Internet and to promote e-learning, English for employment. English language provides a lot of opportunities for employment which the regional languages are not conducive to. Knowledge of general English is compulsory in competitive examinations conducted by various organizations. The prospects of employment for a person knowing English are bright anywhere, whether India or abroad. There are institutions and courses for teaching English for special purposes, ESP, for professionals like engineers, doctors, teachers and executives. It is therefore preeminently the language which opens to us the prospects of employment at home and abroad, and offers means of cultural communication with other parts of the world. Knowledge of English is an asset to any person post, says S.K. Chatterjee. English for trade and commerce. Globalization influences the world trade and commerce. English plays an important role in many areas of trade, ranging from tourism to trade in financial services. National and international trade, development of industry and working in commercial establishments take place in English. The rules and regulations of trade are mostly prepared in English. As Gandhiji said, English is the language of international commerce. Status of English in India. English is as much a part of Indian linguistic scene as any other Indian languages. The language holds a prime position in the present-day socio-cultural settings of India. Today, English is a symbol of people's aspirations for quality education and full participation in national and international life. English almost at every level of administration as the language of education, trade, finance and technology, judicial setup, and even in our personal communication has grown into a developmental strategy in the 21st century. As English is so widely used, it has been referred to as the global language. No doubt it will give exposure to the emerging era of knowledge. Let me conclude with a quote from Noah Webster. Language is not an abstract construction of the learned or of the dictionary makers, but it is something arising out of the work, needs, ties, joys, affections, tastes of long generations of humanity, and has its base broad and low, close to the ground. Before we attend the next unit, please try to answer the following questions. What is downward filtration theory? What is Anglicist Oriental controversy? Write a brief description about the recommendations of various commissions on English education in India. What is three-language formula? Point out the functions of English in India. The books for your reference are The Growth and Structure of English Language by Anna Kurian, Student Store, Bareilly. An introductory textbook of Linguistics and Phonetics by R.L. Vashni, Student Store, Bareilly. Principles of Teaching English by S. Venkateswaran, Vikas Publishing House, Private Limited, New Delhi. Hope you have enjoyed the session well. Bye till we meet next time. Thank you.